All right. So now what we're going to do like a simple how to get started with programming stuff. And I don't really want this to be too complex, so we're just going to go through the basics of it, okay? The easiest way to do this is this circuit playground that we talked about, right? So this was this little circular one that's good for wearables because it has the through ports things. This one has the 10 pixels already built in and stuff, right? So Adafruit sells them. They're great. They have a classic and an express now, so it's nice. They're like 20 bucks, 25 bucks-ish. But when you come over here, you can actually use their drop and drag make programmer. So it's kind of neat. So what that looks like, it's something like this. So it gives you the digital thing here, right? And then it's supposed to mirror what you see here, okay? And the cool thing is we can actually push the code to it or pull the code to it and stuff like that, right? So when we do it, let me just plug it in to my keyboard so you can kind of see what it does. And it powers up, and then all of a sudden starts doing its predetermined thing, which I said before, so it makes it rainbow, okay? So for those of you live, it looks like that, right? Which is kind of nice. It's kind of an easy way to do it, right? This one is the circuit playground.
It's Adafruit technology.
Adafruit circuit playground. It always wants to focus and it wants to not focus. It's like, yes, no, yes, no. All right, so the ways to do this is it's very drag and drop. Have you guys ever heard of Scratch? Is that familiar to anyone? It's a programming language that looks exactly like this, like little puzzle pieces, right? And basically what you do is you take the little puzzle pieces and bring them over, okay? So you can actually just grab like a light, so you go into lights, right? Grab that NeoPixel ring and you just drag it into place. And if the little notches fit, it goes there. So if I put it over here, wait, boop. Now, this green thing is called a loop. Now, what a loop does is a bit of code that does the same thing over and over again. Okay? There's a couple different ones, and this one is going to be in a forever loop. So it's an infinite loop. So it will always do the showing of the rings. Okay? So that is kind of what we're doing. Now, if you look over here, notice as soon as I put the code over here, it automatically updates our virtual image of it. Is that kind of cool? So you can change the different colors by picking the colors over here. So I'm going to change all these to, say, yellow. And when I play it, notice now that half are yellow and half are red. Make sense? If I wanted to change a different color, I would go into the middle of the ring, choose a different color, like blue, and then I could make those now blue. Or maybe that one blue and that one blue. And when I play the animation, now just those are that color. So it's a super intuitive way of programming in Arduino, right? You can actually do a lot more things, like you can animate things. So you can do your animations. You can set all the different pixels to a certain color. You can do timing for it. You can change the brightness level of things. And every little piece like this, you can just come over and drag it into place. Change the value. So it's a slider, right? Want it to be brighter or softer. So I'm going to set it all the way to bright. Now when I play it, it's not full brightness, right? Or if I change it to lower, whoops, boop, let's say that. Now when I do it, that's not a good example. Well, maybe. You can kind of tell it's working, but not really working. There we go. If you did it in the real world, then it would show the brightness level being different, okay? But you can always take them out too, so you can unconnect them, you can drag them away, and if you want to, you can throw them in the garbage can if you don't like that piece of code as well. Now, you can actually do other things, like you can import music, you can do networking, you can do math and variables and everything coding that you want to do inside of this, which is kind of cool, just by dragging and dropping, okay? But know that if you're dealing with the LEDs, you're going to stay in the light thing for most of it, okay? You can change the different colors, hues, and things like that. So let's talk about colors really quick. How do colors work, right? So colors work by setting values of R, G, and B values, okay? And this one's going to be slightly different, so let me go that way. Now what they do is when you combine red, green, and blue light, you can actually make any other color. So that's kind of the cool thing. So inside of each of these individual NeoPixels is an R, a G, and a blue. So a red, a green, and a blue inside of that one, right? So if I wanted to make all the red color, I would turn the red to 255, which is its maximum value, right? And then I would set the other ones to 0. the maximum of 255. And anything in between would give you different colors. So that's kind of how the colors work. And of course, this is very basic, so like we have to kind of go in more complex as well. Now, if you do want to go more complex, the Circuit Python or Circuit Playground allows you to switch from blocks over to JavaScript, which will convert the code that you have over into JavaScript. So if you know JavaScript, easy way to program this too. Okay. After you do it, then you have to download the code, and then you'd have to use your Arduino to program it. It's kind of the hardest one. Okay. Now, Arduino. Let's talk about that for a minute. So Arduino code, you're just going to get from arduino.com or maybe .org. Let me see what I got. Boop. Ooh, .cc, right? And what you're going to do is you're just going to download their resources and get their free software. Now, when you download their software, it's going to look like this. And you're like, what is this? Right? Because you're like, oh, it's great. What is it? What does it do? Right? Now, this is set up by doing a setup function. And a function is a little piece of code that runs when you tell it to run. So it says, hey, I'm going to live over here, and just let me know when you need me. All right. So the setup code runs once when your program launches. And then the loop is going to be a forever loop, kind of like we saw over here. So whatever we have in our forever loop is going to happen continuously. So whatever you put inside of here is going to be continuous. Okay? All right, so let me go ahead and make sure there's a couple different things we need. This is where it gets a little weird, all right? You have to make sure that you have the board in your board manager, and you need a library. All right, so when you download Arduino, the first thing you have to do is put in, hey, I have these boards. So they're going to be listed under the board manager. So if you come down, it should be under Tools and Board. There we go. Come over to Board Manager. If you can actually launch it, let me try that one more time. Tools, Board, Board Manager. And here you could just type in whatever board you're looking for. Okay. So for this one, I want to see if I have Circuit Playground. And it should pop up. Boop. Yep, I already have it installed because it's actually the Adafruit one too. Should be the same things. But if you don't have it, you would just click on it and you would click Install button. Okay. So we have those. Now we need a couple other things. And what we want to do is the easiest way to do light strands for yourself is to use Adafruit's NeoPixel library. How do we do that? So we need to add it to our libraries. So we come over to our sketch, come down to Library, and we go to Manage Libraries. And again, we're recording this so you can watch it later because it's going to be confusing, right? There's also a crap ton of tutorials online, and they're all really good. All right. So Manage Libraries, you're going to have to type in NeoPixel over here to the search bar. And it should sort through, and it says, hey, here's the Adafruit NeoPixel library. Okay. So there's one. There's another one down there. But you got to at least install one of them. And I don't really have one installed yet, so that's weird. So I guess I'll install it. So I click Install, and it says, all right, you now have that code. All right. The easiest way to do this next is to use an example. So when we come down to File at the top, down to Examples, you're going to see all the little basic built-in examples for you. All right. Scroll down until you see the either Adafruit Circuit Playground or we have our NeoPixel. For this example, I'm going to do the NeoPixel. And all of these are different types of NeoPixel basic animations. The easiest one to start with is a strand test. All right, strand test. So when you click on it, it automatically gives you all the different code that you need, which is kind of cool, right? Now here's what all of this actually means. So let me go ahead and take my Circuit Playground off of it. I just shocked myself. Good. And I'm going to hook up my Arduino Uno to this. And I need 3 wires in a minute. So I'll put those over here. And we'll actually start controlling some lights so you can kind of see how it works. All right. So the code itself is very easy to read, but it's actually written in a C language. So if you know C, it's great. But the cool part about all the examples are they're very well commented, which means there's a lot of detailed instructions inside of the actual code itself. So anytime you see a / in front of it, that's not actual code, it's a comment. Okay? So it's the computer looks past it. So if we look in here, we're going to kind of go to a couple different things. The first one we're going to look at is this LED pin. All right. Does anybody remember how what we said was a pin on an Arduino? Yeah, like a pin is just one of those little ports. So if I pull back up the Arduino Uno, boop, and let me pull up a picture of it, what it's asking for is it says, hey, which one of these pins is your LED lights? All right? And what I mean by the LED lights is what pin or port do you connect to the data one? Because remember, there's 3 things on a NeoPixel strip, right? So what are they again? We have to connect the, the voltage, right? The ground, and the middle one, which is the data. So it's saying, what pin are you connecting to my data port? Okay? So we pick that one, and we can pick any one of the digital ones, so any one of these. But what we have to do is we have to tell it which one it is. So right now, it's saying, hey, by default, try out 6. We can change that if we want to. We can't if we don't want to. It's up to us, right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to come over to my Arduino. Boop. Let me make sure I get that in the screen for a minute. All right. I'm going to find my port number 6, so my pin out. I'm going to take one of my little jumper cables, and I'm going to put it directly in there. Boop. Like that. All right. So now all that does is give me that as a little wire here, so I can connect it to something else. All right. Now I need 3 things, right? I needed the data, I needed the black wire for the ground, and then I needed the red, which is going to be the battery coming in. So the cool thing about the Arduino itself is remember that it actually supplies those. So over here, we have our 5-volt out, and then our ground. Because remember, ground is going to be that negative thing for the battery terminal. So I'm going to find those on my board over here, and I'm going to put a red one in my 5-volt. Let me find out which one that one is. I'm trying to look at this upside down. It's confusing. I'm going to say that one, right? If it doesn't work, we know why. And then the ground is going to be right next to it. Should be that one. All right. So as long as they're not touching, we are good. Now we have all these wires coming off of it. We have 3 different wires, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to connect them to the LED strip, right? And I connected it with one of those quick connects that I showed you earlier, so I just slipped it on, all right? Now, the key important things are the colors of this are matching to what the colors are over here, all right? So from now on, the brown one coming off of this is going to be our ground. The middle one is going to be our data port, and the white one, it looks like our voltage. So what does that mean? We have to make a connection between those and our board. So what I'm going to use for those is just a set of alligator clips. Alligator clips look like this, right? So when you squeeze them, they open up like a little alligator, kind of a thing, right? They're really great for prototyping boards like this, so you can quickly make connections. So I'm going to clip one to our red, boop, and then one should be to our white for our NeoPixel strip. Let's see if that works. Boop. All right. Then we're going to make another one from our data port over there to our middle one. Can you guys see this okay? Or is that, this is boring anyway, so we'll skip this part. But we're just kind of making sure that they all get connected. So I'm going to connect them to the yellow, to the green. Boop. And again, just make sure that you actually hit the exposed wire when you're connecting things. So like not the plastic part, because the plastic part is not conductive. So you got to make sure that you actually plug it into the wire itself. So I'm clipping, and one last clip. And now I should have a connected NeoPixel strip for right here. So all I did was use this, come over some jumper cables into the board itself. All right? And I just realized that this is the wrong port. So I need a different cord. Give me 1 second, because I was going to use the other one. Hold on a minute. Hey, babe, do you know what that cord is for the bigger size one? It's going to be in one of those boxes. Hold on. Nope. I love how this whole box is just lighting up and flashing. It's going to be one of these. All right. So the Arduino Uno actually uses an older cable because it's kind of an old system itself, right? So that one This is literally a chopped in half cord. Hold on one second. And I'll show it to you when I get back over there. Hopefully. Good Lord, do I only have one and it's chopped in half? Oh, good, I have one not chopped in half. So the fun thing is you can actually use it to power it too. So I chopped one of the cords in half just to run power off of it. All right. So the Arduino Uno actually uses a older style. So that one still plugs in using a USB port, but it's kind of like that shape of a plug, which is fairly standard. You'll find it at most of old printers and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So we're going to plug that in. I'm going to plug that into my keyboard itself. And when I do, there should be an LED light on the board itself that's just going to flash. So hopefully that will work. Boop. All right. So that means we're getting power to the board and it's ready to do something. All right. But right now, I didn't really tell it what to do. All right. So now, at least we have power. We have all the connections made. But notice that the LED strip here, which is kind of on the outside of the field of the view, boop, is not really lit because we didn't tell it to light up yet. We're giving it the power, but we're not giving it the commands or the data. All right? So let's go back to our code over here. We'll take a look at that. All right. Next code. How many LEDs are on your strip? This is where this gets weird, right? So you actually have to count the number of individual pixels in the strip because it wants to know, for animation purposes, how long is it going to be, right? Because if I want to make an animation a specific look specific, I need to know how many individual things I have for it. So we're just going to say 60 now, but we can actually change it later. So we're going to leave that, but we would just put the number of individual pixels. And remember, the individual pixels is something like this. Each little white square. Boop. Yeah, one of those. That is a pixel, okay? A neopixel. All right. Moving on. What's the next code? All right. The next code, it basically, we can leave this all as it is. If we have trouble, we can come back in and make changes. Here are the different changes we can make. There are different styles of NeoPixel lights, and then it says what style you're using. This is always the most common, so that's why it defaults to that. The rest of the code for the setup just basically says, all right, you're an Arduino code. You have an LED strip called strip. I want you to begin itself and do the show. Okay? You can also set the brightness level to anything between 0 and 255, because that's usually the upper max value. All right? So right now it's going to just start at 50, so I guess we'll maybe bump it up to 100. We can actually push this to the board and do it. Now what we're going to do is it's going to do the loop function. And how long does it go? Forever. All right? Now each one of these does something different. The first one, you can actually read it, color wipe. So what does it do? It wipes the whole LED with different colors. Which kind? Well, as a comment here, you can see it's red. But let's figure it out. A color is made up by what colors? Red, green, and blue, right? So it takes in 3 values, red, green, and blue. And whatever numbers you put in here determine what color you get on your NeoPixel strip, all right? There's a lot of good online stuff that's going to be like a color picker for RGB values, right? So you can actually just use one of these things, and then you can get those RGB values, which looks right here. Right. So if I wanted a purple light, then I would type in 255, 0, 255, something like that. Or if I want a slightly darker purple light, then it's 153, 0, 153. Yeah. Yeah, it's confusing, especially when you're starting out, right? So that's how you get the different colors. Let's explain this one. So this one is going to be the brightness level of it. All right. So again, it's going to be out of 255. So we're going to set that brightness level. Now, this one, we'll do it red. This one will do green, and then finally blue. Then it does a theater marquee effect, which a theater marquee basically means it'll blink lights in a certain order that looks like it's going around the light. Okay? Then we have a rainbow and a rainbow chase. So it's just going to do that, and then it's going to continuously go through the cycle for as long as we want to do it. So let's try to push this out to it first. So the first thing we have to do is set up our board. So we pick whichever board we're using, and we're doing an Arduino Uno. So we go, boop, Arduino Uno. We got to make sure that we're on the right port. So we come down to port, and a port means, hey, where is the Arduino plugged in at, right? Because there's different ways you can do it. You can do it by a Bluetooth. You can do Wi-Fi for some boards. And this one is going to be a USB. So I'm going to choose USB. So I made sure I chose the board, the port, right? And now I'm ready to try it. So up in the left-hand corner, you're going to find two buttons. The left-hand one is a verify button. Now what this does is it checks your code and see if it should compile correctly. All right, so we're going to click that first. If you notice here on the bottom, it's going to say compiling and then done compiling, so no errors. All right, if we had an error, it would stop you and tell you where the error was at. All right, back up to the top left-hand corner, we have the little arrow, and if you hover over that, that says upload. So we're going to click that, and hopefully it will push our code to our board. And if you notice over here, our NeoPixels are starting to go. Because as soon as that code uploaded to the board, we now have animation from our NeoPixel strip, right? So this is the rainbow effect, and so on and so on. Now notice it stops here, right? So I want to show the people in the camera. So it stops there. For some reason, like, hey, it animates to this point, and then it's just blank going after that. All right, can anybody figure out why? 60 pixels, right. Because we only told it to animate 60 pixels, so it's only doing 60 pixels. How about if I want more? What part of my code do I change? Yeah, which value? LED count. How many pixels do I want? So maybe let's add 30 more, so I'm going to change this to 90. If I make a change here, does it affect it though? What do I have to do? Yeah, I got to upload it, right? So I'm going to push the new code by clicking that upload button. It's going to upload for it. And now it's going to start again. And remember, it stopped right here. And now it goes 30 more pixels. So however many pixels I actually need, right?
But you didn't have to recompile it.
I didn't. Yeah, I was just changing the value. Because the other one's just a check. So like when you write your code, you have to make sure it's good. Then you can kind of tweak it and stuff like that. All right? But this is the basics of Arduino. Right? So if we kind of put this over here, can everybody see it over there? Okay? Yeah? All right. Yeah, question? Board itself. Yeah, so now, exactly. So now if I unplug it from my computer and plug it into a battery source, it'll do this animation from now on, right? But now, this is cool, right? Because it's going through the things, it's doing rainbow stuff, it's neat. But how do we make it more of our own, right? That's where we start editing the code. Now this is going to be a little bit trickier, right? But say this is great, but I don't really need it to do all that stuff in the beginning, right? Maybe I just want it to be a rainbow. That's all I want it to be.